Hello, live again, back for another quick video. So in this video, I just wanted to explain what I've been up to for the past 6 months. So I started this channel about a year ago, and it was chronicling my progress through the Odin project on the Ruby on Rails path. And I was pretty consistent with videos, but they were more technically based. And I think those technical videos are good, especially at that level where you're trying to get your head around just what programming is. They may be helpful for people in the same boat. But I think as time progresses, I want to start making videos more experiential and less technical, because I think they're easier to consume, and um, I think I've learned a lot of things in the last 12 months in pursuing a career in web development, being self-taught. So yeah, back to my last videos. I think was probably, I didn't even look at the date, but I know my last video was on my Ruby on Rails dog adoption application. It must be at least 8 months ago. And what on earth have I been doing in that time? Well, in sum, it's been super busy, and I've been spending pretty much every spare hour that I have developing software, coding, as well as construction projects. So this building that I'm in right now is it's like a garden office. Come the pandemic, everyone's at home. My wife and I are both working remotely from home. We have a now 1.5-year-old, sorry, a 14-month-old little boy. And as you can imagine, the house is pretty hectic. And I thought this would be a really good way to create separation between the work and the home life. So this is now a garden office, which I absolutely love. It's been amazing for productivity, and it's, it's a nice, new, fresh building to be in. It's just kind of a feel good. I've been busy building that, along with some contractors as well. I've been doing some work. They did most of it, but that's been a lot of effort and time. And in the meantime, I've been spending a ton of time on my Ruby on Rails dog adoption application, building out some new features, just refactoring stuff, working with contributors on that as well. I think there's 5 other contributors beyond myself on that code base now. So that's gone really well. And I started working at FreshBooks. So one of my videos was a job offer accepted video. If you have watched that, seen my progress there, I accepted an offer. I think it was last August. So we're coming up maybe 10 months ago. And I worked at FreshBooks from September. And my first contract ended in December, and then it got extended again. So I did another 4-month contract from January to, when was that? April. And they extended me for a third contract. However, it was maintaining the intern rate. And I decided not to go back for that contract. It was a tough decision. It's a great company, great team. Really enjoyed working there, learned a ton. But my heart was in Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and their tech stacks, primarily Python and Flask. And the fact that they'd just gone through a round of layoffs and people around me had been fired, it didn't inspire much confidence in me that, okay, you're going to give me a 4-month contract here, but where's it going to go after then? They wanted to hire me. My manager, my director, they really wanted to hire me because I think I did a really good job as an intern there, based on their feedback. But having gone through cutbacks, they just were not in a position to be able to hire. So I wasn't feeling too confident and great about that. But during that entire 8 months, I was coding all day at work at FreshBooks, and that was a remote job. And then in the evenings, I was putting in an hour or two on some other coding. So I was learning a bit of React, and I was learning more about Rails and building out the dog adoption application. I was trying to keeping my Git push-ups up, and making commits every single day, if it even is just a little bit of code after work, because I felt like my time at FreshBooks I didn't feel solid. I didn't feel comfortable there yet because of the layoffs and the fact that I wasn't offered a full-time position. So I felt like I had to keep investing in myself learning and growing, especially in the Ruby and Rails sphere, because that's ultimately the direction I wanted to take. But while I was at FreshBooks, it was great. The first 4 months was kind of trial by fire. It was very challenging going into a massive distributed system. It's in a language and frameworks I wasn't really used to, coming from the Odin project, Python and Flask for the most part. There was one Ruby and Rails service handling authentication and authorization, so that was a little bit of comfort for me working in that. But it was a ton of services, microservices. So I think there were over 50 services there, and I was touching maybe 8 to 10 of them, and just a different environment running through Docker, and then the whole development workflow using Jenkins and the pipeline for deployment. These are all things I had to get used to. Luckily, the documentation was good. The support was really good. The staff were great there. My colleagues were fantastic at helping me learn. But I also had to put in a ton of time myself to really not give up and learn. That was the first 4 months. In the second 4 months were much, much easier. Actually, for maybe 6 weeks there, from January to mid-February, I was doing somewhat repetitive tasks, which was actually quite a nice feeling to just get into a rhythm. The first 4 months was a lot of bug fixes and fixing this awful technical debt that I got saddled with when they built a new feature and it was hidden behind a feature flag. When I removed that feature flag, it exposed a ton of technical debt that I had to, as an intern, fix, along with some support from a senior. And there were 300 failed tests, and it was a nightmare. It was red blood all over the screen from the failed tests, and it was a real challenge and a test of my fortitude as a developer. But I got through it, and after that, everything just got so much better, and that's where I really learned the power of debugging. In different testing frameworks, from unit tests, integration tests, capybara tests, debugging those, using developer console, and really kind of learning my way around this massive monolith front-end Ember.js application, and then running that along with a back-end application at the same time to try and figure out what was going wrong. Yeah, it was really good in retrospect, but there were many hours where I felt like, wow, I'm not sure I can do this. But you push through and you prevail. The next 4 months, it was sweet. I was working on building out some new product features, allowing payroll to be integrated or embedded within FreshBooks, so that there was kind of a seamless experience for people using payroll in FreshBooks. FreshBooks is like an accounting platform for small business. And that was great. Just building endpoints I got to learn about domain-driven design and how to structure these endpoints within a Flask application. And that was really interesting. I can't say I understand domain-driven design in its entirety whatsoever, but I have a kind of better concept of how to, separate your concerns, have your ports and adapters, separating kind of external logic and infrastructure from your core domain logic, as well as what language to use in that kind of infrastructure. I learned about C4 diagrams as well. That was a pretty interesting way of diagramming out your services from very high level all the way down to kind of the model class level of much more finer detail. And yeah, did that for 6 weeks, and that was nice. Built maybe five endpoints I built, and learned a ton just about consuming APIs from a third-party integration that way. And then I got put on a solo project to add a new user role into a number of services. And what was required for that was there was a custom-built library for the Ruby on Rails service, which was used for authentication and authorization. And that library had to be upgraded because the new role had been added to that service. And so in all of these 6 other Python Flask services and Python Django services that I had to go and add this new role to, I had to update this library. But when you update a library, usually it has dependencies that have versions that need to be upgraded, and then things break. So again, it was a whole experience and test in debugging again to figure out what's broken in an app that I'd never touched or even seen before, so that I could upgrade the dependencies and get this new role integrated, and then get the features working for that role as they should be. And that was kind of my capstone project there at the end, which was great. I had a whole kind of experience of working in a team on a pod, building these payroll endpoints, through to having my own project where I was working directly with a manager and a product lead, or product manager, to figure out what exactly needed to be done. And it was kind of on the fly. It was dynamic. Things were changing. Sometimes I had to backtrace. I learned a lot about communication between development teams to make sure there wasn't overlapping work being done, and that everyone kind of knew what their roles were. Yeah, so that's what kept me busy for the last 8 months or so, and that's what I've been up to: kind of home improvements and a ton of development, and checking in on the Odin Project Discord now and then. But it was a big step to give up my extension offer from FreshBooks. It just wasn't. I felt like you can't keep. It's like dating. After a while, you got to commit to someone and show that you're serious. And I felt like FreshBooks wasn't able to do that with me. It's a two-way relationship there. Just inevitably, my skills, the way I was operating there, had it on, from multiple developers, senior developers, managers, that I was operating well above an intern level. So I felt like I was being undervalued, if I was to take a third internship there. It would have been a good choice either way, stay on at FreshBooks, but I felt like it wasn't the best choice for me. And so I actually went back to my old government job for a total of 4 weeks, because it was available and it was just something to bring an income in while I was finding other work. And I managed to land another job, but I'll make a separate video about that. But as a teaser, full-time remote Ruby on Rails job for a small SaaS company in Toronto. And there's a whole story around that. So I'll save that for another video, but I just wanted to give people a heads up as to what was going on the last 6 months. But plenty of coding, plenty of failing, and retrying and succeeding in the end.